we started the show today with the title track from Michael Jackson's album, Thriller. And I will get to that in just a moment. But at the risk of rubbing 80% of this community the wrong way, I'm just going to say it because they allow me time on this microphone every single day. And until they stop doing that, I'm just going to say what's on my mind. And what's on my mind is this, whether you like it or not. The truth is that setting fire to one's leaves is a far superior option than raking them to the curb for the heavy machinery to come around and pick them up. That's just the truth. I'm not endorsing arson. I don't think you should randomly set fire to others' leaves. However, I maintain that setting fire to one's leaves is a far superior option to raking them to the curb. I was heading out on Saturday afternoon, and I saw my neighbors down the street raking their leaves to the side of the road, and then, wait a minute, get this, picking them up and bagging them. And so I slowed down my vehicle. I said, hey, you, what? Wait a minute there. You know that you can just rake the leaves to the curb and then we'll send around big machinery to pick it up for you. You know that you don't have to pick up your own leaves, right? And my neighbors looked at me and said, listen here, Farwell, we pick up our leaves in this neighborhood. We know. And besides, there's a leaf dump just over there. I can't believe the city provides this service. I said, I'm with you. You are smart people. This is why you're my favorite neighbors. So stupid that we do this every year, honestly. And it's not right to randomly go around setting fire to leaves. However, if you'd rather not rake them to the curb, I'm not endorsing anything. I'm just simply stating a fact. It's a far superior option. We start today with Thriller, of course, because as we learned in the overnight hours, the legendary, multi-talented music titan Quincy Jones passing away at the age of 91. And his legacy went from Sinatra to Michael Jackson himself, producing the historic Thriller album. According to the family, in a statement released tonight, with full but broken hearts, we must share the news of our father and brother Quincy Jones's passing. And although this is an incredible loss for our family, we celebrate the great life that he lived and know there will never be another like him. Quincy Jones passing away. A titan is absolutely the word to use when talking about Quincy Jones, passing away at the age of 91. Quick question for you. I know it's Monday and it's like a pop quiz, right? That's why I only lasted 1 year as a teacher, but just deal with it. My mouth is open. My microphone is on. Quick question. I promise just one. Have the Kitchener Rangers stopped winning hockey games yet? Have they stopped winning all the time?
Back to the blue line, it's Carson Campbell. The shot, Oak the save, the rebound, they score! Vermeulen fights off the check and goes top shelf. It's a 4-1 Ranger lead.
Oh, baby, it's a 4-1 Ranger lead. They would beat the defending Memorial Cup champions from Saginaw 4-2 yesterday, and that makes it 1, 2, 3. I'm going to need two hands pretty soon. I'm going to need two. Well, I already need two. I'm going to need more than two. That's 9 wins in a row for the Kitchener Rangers. They have points in 14 straight games. Follow-up question to whether or not the Rangers have stopped winning hockey games yet. The answer is no. Follow-up question. Will they appear in the CHL top 10 this week when the list is released tomorrow? Will the Rangers... Can I have 4 liters of pop? Sorry, I'm channeling my inner St. Catharines beer store guy there for a minute. Will they be on the CHL top 10 when the list is released tomorrow? I guess we'll find out tomorrow, won't we?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
I'm going to play. I'm feeling some St. Catharines beer store guy. I'm going to play him before 9:30 this morning, okay? We're going to play some St. Catharines beer store guy. I love that guy. 5 things. Your Farwell Show 5 this morning starts at number 1. The Leafs lost back-to-back games this weekend, and Austin Matthews did not score. So we can't do AM on AM in the AM today. However, Kitchener's own Stevie Lorentz scored a goal for the Maple Leafs. Go. There.
Pass to the side of the goal. Rebound in front. They score! The fourth line says, get me on the ice. And it is Steven Lorentz who comes up with a loose puck in front of the goal, and the Leafs get on the board after the power play is putrid.
Well, the power play may have been putrid, but Stevie Lorentz is living out a childhood dream playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and he's making Kitchener proud as well. Second goal of the season for Stevie. Number 2 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, the city of Waterloo is being sued by a religious group in Quebec. The group was ticketed last winter as it was going door to door in Waterloo, sharing its message about suicide prevention. The tickets were issued because the group was accused of contravening a bylaw that requires nonprofit groups to obtain a permit for soliciting in the municipality. The group says the $900 in tickets infringe on their freedom of religion and expression. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, talks continue in an effort to avert a strike at Canada Post. The union was in a legal strike position as of yesterday, but both sides have agreed on a 72-hour notice before a strike or lockout. The union says Canada Post's latest wage increase offer is less than the rate of inflation, and that pensions and benefits would both see cuts. Canada Post has offered wage increases of 11.5% over 4 years. Number 4, violence has shaken a Hindu temple in Brampton. Online videos show Khalistani demonstrators outside the temple yesterday clashing with Hindus. Prime Minister Trudeau says every Canadian has the right to practice their faith freely and safely. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, with less than 48 hours to go in the U.S. election and more than 77 million votes already cast, new polling shows Kamala Harris leading among early voters in the country's battleground states. The Democratic candidate has an 8% lead among those who have already voted, while her opponent, Donald Trump, is ahead among those who say they are very likely to vote but have not yet done so. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Monday morning. A quick break. I've got St. Catharines beer guy on the mind, and we've got Andre, the Kitchener wine guy, on the phone. So much to get to right after this quick timeout. Join the party on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Deborah, we need to have a little chat here this morning, okay? You're really ruining my vibe with your emails to Mike at 570news.com, Deb's email. Under the headline, "Is burning fallen leaves hurting your health?" leads me to a link that says, "Indeed it is. Burning leaves can harm your health, especially in an enclosed area." That's a good thing, Deb, because I don't want you burning the leaves in an enclosed area. However, on the back 40 of your property, maybe, just maybe, you can do that. Can I have a fire in my backyard? No, I can't have a fire in my backyard in Waterloo. And this article that Deb sent me a link to echoes some of the arguments made against having outdoor fires in Waterloo because of the fine dust, the soot, and the small particles that are released into the air, which, of course, causes that dreaded air pollution. I still say, I just want to maintain that burning one's leaves, I'm not endorsing it, I'm simply stating to you factually, it's a better option than having the heavy machinery come by. What about the air pollution from the heavy machinery? The raking to the curb, you're right. Maybe Atrium Health and the link that Deb sent me is spot on, and burning your fallen leaves is hurting your health. Well, collecting leaves at the curbside with heavy machinery hurts my brain. It hurts my brain. Can I have a backyard fire in Waterloo? That is me echoing St. Catharines beer guy. I don't know why he's on my mind this morning, but if you forget your last meeting with him, here's your reminder.
What did you buy today?
I bought 6 Busch Light, 6 Bud Light, and I love them, tall boys.
Tall boys? How much would you drink a day?
Well, what day? Regular day, I don't know, maybe a couple beers, depends. Weekends, maybe, 5 beer. 2 drinks a week.
What do you think of that?
Well, that's just not feasible, not in this country. Well, come on, man, 2 drinks a week, what's that going to do for you? I mean, that doesn't even get you through a day. A reasonable amount, if you're at home, you should be able to have like 4 beer. That's just 2 more. I mean, I'll have 6. But 4 is a fair number. But there shouldn't even be guidelines anyway. Why are you going to tell me how much I can drink at home?
Well, I guess the idea is, would you be concerned that you're at a higher health risk if you're drinking too much?
No. The main point here is, why are they telling me what I can drink at home? What, can I have 2 liters of pop? Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
So I'm guessing that this information about the new guidelines isn't going to change your mind.
It's heartbreaking, and I can't even believe it.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? St. Catherine's beer guy is my favorite guy. That's from actually a couple of years ago when the drinking guidelines were in the news. It was just a recommendation, 2 drinks a week. Oh, it's not feasible. Not in this country. Can I have 2 liters of pop? St. Catherine's beer store guy wants to know. From St. Catherine's beer store guy to Kitchener's own wine guy, Andre is on the phone with us this morning. Andre likes to call our Rangers Talk post-game show on Friday after he's into the bottles of wine. Bottles, plural. Can I have 2 liters of wine? That's what Andre wants to know on Friday nights.
I don't drink pop. Leave me alone.
I'm not blaming you I wouldn't drink pop either. Good morning, Andre.
Good morning, Mike. Man, oh man. Two quick things. Is yesterday at the Kitchener Ranger game, I was there with my daughter. Wow, spectacular. And even Action Jackson, the fans love him so much. Like, I was like, what's going on? Did they score a goal? No, he blocked it. He's just so spectacular. And being there, being blind with my daughter and with you in my ear, still everywhere I go, you're there. It was kind of weird because it's kind of like you're getting old, Mike, and you're like 30 seconds behind or something. I don't know what's going on with you, but that's a joke. And 2, did you say that you want the TO leaves to burn? What?
Yeah. I think burning leaves is better than picking up. No, not the Toronto Maple Leafs, Andre. Don't be like that. Okay, Andre, talk to you later. Listen, when you try to listen, we need to bring back good old-fashioned transistor radios, because if you're listening to the game at the arena, you're right. With the delay, because you're listening to it on your phone or on some sort of app, it's going to be behind, it's so weird, right? You'll see something happen on the ice before I get excited about it on the radio. We need some transistor radios again. If you had just a good old-fashioned transistor radio tuned to 570 on the AM band, then you're going to be just fine. But more than anything this morning, I just want to know the answer to another question.
Can I have 2 liters of pop? Well, what's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? Do the math.
Do the math. What's more healthy, 4 beers or 2 liters of Coca-Cola? We're getting to the bottom of the big questions this morning on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Okay, it is time to stop channeling my inner St. Catherine's beer store guy and our very own Kitchener wine guy, Andre, and get serious. There are serious things to discuss on the show today. One other thing I would like to draw your attention to locally is our Facebook page. Is that shameless? Probably a little bit, but please do visit when you have an opportunity. Facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show, because you will find there a very interesting photograph of a new roundabout in the city of Kitchener. It's on Wilson Avenue. And the pavement markings on this particular roundabout are, in my humble opinion, a recipe for some sort of disaster. Because you see, we have the pavement markings entering the roundabout. There are 2 lanes entering the roundabout. Let's call them the inside lane and the outside lane. And both of these lanes, according to the markings, will allow you to either go straight or turn right. The problem that I see when I look at these pavement markings is that if I'm in the inside lane and I would like to use it to turn right, as the pavement marking suggests that I can, but there's somebody in the outside lane that would like to go straight, as the pavement markings suggest they can, we are going to end up with a collision within the roundabout, aren't we? The pavement markings say You could be in either lane and go straight or make a right-hand turn. And if two vehicles approach the roundabout at the same time, and the person on the inside lane wants to turn right, and the person in the outside lane wants to keep going straight, you've both done what the pavement markings say you can do, and you're going to end up running into one another. You can see the photograph for yourself. Maybe I'm misreading it, but I don't think I am. It's pretty clearly marked with paint on the road. Check it out for yourself. Facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. Even when we build roundabouts, we don't seem to be getting things right. You would think we've built enough of them by now that we've got it sorted. But in this particular case, we're going to have to do some sort of update because it's not going to work the way it is currently composed. All right, I'm going to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then let's talk about affordable housing in this community. We talk about housing an awful lot, and it is probably the issue of the day. Like 4 or 5 years ago, the issue was COVID and our response to the pandemic. Today, the issue is housing, how we build more of it, increasing supply to dampen demand, how we bring down the cost of housing. But even as we do those things, there is a need for affordable housing in this community. What is affordable? That may be in the eye of the wallet holder in this particular case, but building affordable housing in one's community is a financially prudent thing to do. So argues Citizens for Cambridge. We'll hear from them next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. There is a cost to our community for ignoring the costs of homelessness. Inaction, in other words, is not an option here. So argues Citizens for Cambridge, and a member of that group, Ann Tinker, joins our program this morning. Ann, good morning.
Good morning.
What is it costing us to ignore the costs of homelessness?
Well, if you look at people that are street involved, take up a lot more of our emergency services than the average citizen. So a couple of years ago, CMHA did a comparison of here's what it costs to keep people in housing and here's what it costs to the rest of our system. So supportive housing is actually the most cost-effective of any option. Shelter beds cost 3 times as much. Hospital beds are $13,500 a month, and correctional facilities, it's over $4,000 a month, whereas supportive housing is just over $600, where people will be off the street in a successful tenancy with the supports that they need to maintain that.
I've long loved this argument, and because it just makes perfect financial sense when you start to break it down, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And actually, our Mayor Liggett, was on CBC this morning, and I was happy to hear her say that we need more supportive housing in Cambridge, because currently the only supportive housing are the 20 bachelor apartments at the Bridges. So how do we get there? Then how do we get this all-important, affordable and supportive housing into Cambridge? Well, I think there's a number of lines we could tug. I think we have to advocate for it at higher levels of government. Our region has done an incredible job. They have a great housing strategy, but you can't do anything without the funding. So you know, we needed to start at the federal level, we needed to trickle down to the provincial level, and we need a provincial government that is committed to providing this. I did some quick numbers the other day when the Premier announced that everybody who had filed an Ontario tax return would get $200. So according to the 2021 Statistics Canada census, there are over 450,000 adults over 20 years of age in Waterloo Region. Now, if every one of those submitted an Ontario tax return, which is not likely, but if they did, that would be over $90 million. If only half of them did, that would be nearly $50 million. Now, that would go a long way to building more affordable housing and providing the supports that are needed for people to be successful.
One of the things I have always wondered in these conversations, Anne, is why, especially in an era, where we're hearing more about expropriation in the Wilmot farmland story, I don't know why we as a community don't expropriate motels in order to create immediate shelter spaces for people.
Well, I don't either. I mean, it seems like incredibly logical.
Right? The buildings are already there, right? They've got locked rooms, everything.
The buildings are there. They have, they have bathrooms. You could put support services on site or have them come in. And some communities have done that with motels and have been very successful. So that is a model that has been used elsewhere. I think, this isn't getting any better. Now we're talking about moving people out of encampments. And I mean, my question to that is, where do they go? Shelters are full. We have no shelter in Waterloo Region right at this moment for women who are experiencing homelessness. And 40% of those that are homeless now are older adults. And some of them are outside. Some are living in their cars. So, okay, I get it. Nobody wants encampments, but where do they go?
And you mentioned earlier, Anne, those upper levels of government. And if we look at just this hotel example as one idea here, federally, our government has considered buying hotels to shelter asylum seekers at the cost of tens of millions of dollars.
That's right. They have. I think the problem is most levels of government, they don't all work together. I think in our region, we're quite lucky because the municipalities work collaboratively with regional government. But, the province doesn't play very nice with the feds sometimes. And so then, we don't get what we could it's a cross-Canada problem in every municipality. So we need to be more collaborative in how we work together to solve it. And other countries have been able to do it. So I don't see any reason why one of the richest countries in the world can't do it either.
Anne, I really appreciate you starting the conversation. Thank you very much for being here today.
No, thank you, Mike.
Anne Tinker is a member of Citizens for Cambridge, and that organization argues that building affordable housing, investing in affordable housing for our communities is not just the right thing to do morally, it's also the financially prudent thing to do. And of course, we recognize that extends beyond Cambridge, right? Any community making investments in affordable housing is doing the financially prudent thing. As I said to Anne, I've long appreciated the argument because admittedly, I tend to look at things through a mathematical calculus, and it really just doesn't add up to not make investments in affordable and supportive housing when you consider the costs of healthcare, the costs of shelter spaces, the costs of incarceration, which are the various options being used right now to help those who are unhoused. But if you were to just instead take that money and put it into housing, then you're freeing up the rest of that space and that money in the other systems. The problem I see now is that it's all well and good to talk about how much we've spent on healthcare, on incarceration, on shelter spaces and how much we could save if we just put that same money into affordable housing, but we still have to get the housing built, which is why I'm going to come back to, again, the idea I kind of floated last week on the show and mentioned again with Anne this morning. I honestly do not know why we have not taken this step. I'm sorry to the business person who would be left out in the cold, if you will, when their property, their motel, is expropriated. But we'll expropriate it by paying a little more than market value, and that business owner can cash in that more than market value and go on to their next business venture while we use what has already been built, what is currently standing, with washrooms and locked doors for rooms that people can have for shelter. Why are we not expropriating motels? I can take you down Victoria Street, I can take you down Weber Street East and point out 4 or 5 right off the top of my head that we could expropriate and turn into supportive shelter. Why do we not do this? Would love to hear your thoughts on it, making those investments in affordable housing, and why not? Why not existing structures? We call them motels. They're all over the place. Use those so we don't have to wait for the housing to be built. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Those that are homeless now are older adults, and some of them are outside. Some are living in their cars. Okay, I get it. Nobody wants encampments, but where do they go?
Ann Tinker is a member of Citizens for Cambridge. And I should also point out, lest you did not know, Ann has long been involved in the shelter/supportive housing space. And Citizens for Cambridge, as a group, wrote an op-ed last week pointing out that investments in affordable housing are actually financially prudent. When we think about the costs associated with taking action on our homelessness crisis, we can get pretty overwhelmed. I mean, the crisis is exactly the word to describe the level of homelessness. More than 1,000 people in our community without stable housing. It is an overwhelming issue. And when you start talking about the costs associated with fixing the problem, it gets rather overwhelming. But as Anne correctly points out, and Citizens for Cambridge through their op-ed last week, you actually end up saving money. It's very similar to the universal basic income argument, right? If we gave everybody a universal basic wage so that they would not be relying upon the various support services through Disability, Ontario Works, you name it, EI, you could wrap it all into one universal basic income and, in fact, spend less. When you're looking at the associated healthcare costs, policing and incarceration costs, the costs just to create and maintain shelter beds, you realize you could roll all of those costs into investments in affordable housing and actually spend less to get people into safe, affordable, supportive shelter. But for whatever reason, we haven't done it. And I really believe that because we have been inactive on this file for so long, that we don't have the luxury of waiting to get the supportive housing built. We're just not capable of moving fast enough. I don't believe. Maybe you know better, but I don't believe we're capable of moving fast enough in the face of this crisis, which is why I continue to advocate for the idea. I mean, I haven't heard anybody holding any reins of power talking about this, but I would like to start that conversation because I truly think that we have ready-made buildings in our community that could be bought up, yes, through expropriation, but if solving the homelessness crisis or creating stable, supportive housing isn't reason enough to expropriate land, I don't know what is. And get out there into the community and start buying up those motels. Heck, we rent many of them today. to provide shelter spaces. Just buy the whole kit and caboodle. Just buy the motels, expropriate the motels, and use those to create the necessary shelter spaces. Chris sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. How exactly do we define affordable housing? I feel the term is too generic, not specific enough. And this is a long-time question and, quite frankly, issue, Chris. I think you're right on this. I believe that when we talk about affordable housing, we should be talking about housing that is geared to income. Generally, when we talk about affordable housing being a part of a new development, for example, right? So we get this proposal for a new development and 5% or 10% of the units within that development are going to be deemed affordable. What that means is 80% of market rate. But when you look at market rate being around $2,000 a month, 80% of that is $1,600 a month. I don't believe that's affordable. Certainly not for someone trying to make it by on minimum wage or living on various supports like the aforementioned Ontario Works or Ontario Disability Support or whatnot have you. So I think affordable should mean and should quite frankly be defined as geared to income. But we're not there yet. In some cases, that is the case. But generally, when we're talking about new developments where the developer, in order to get their project through council, commits to creating a percentage of affordable units, that percentage is based at 80% of the market rate, which given current market rates, I just don't think is affordable to Joe and Jane public. But that's the view as I see it from here. I like that Citizens for Cambridge is getting back into the conversation here, the idea that what we're spending or what we're not spending, frankly, by our inaction on homelessness is actually costing us more than we would spend if we actually invested in supportive, affordable housing. It's something important for us to remember as we try. And we can't do it municipally. We're going to need the province and the feds to help. But as we try to solve this homelessness crisis. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. How are you feeling this morning anyway, after the long weekend? We give it back in the spring when we spring forward and lose that hour. But I like to call this one that we just finished a long weekend because we got the extra hour because of falling back. I would still like to know why we go through this twice annual exercise of changing the clocks. Yes, I know, brighter earlier in the day and so on and so forth. But shouldn't we just leave the clocks at one time and not mess with them twice a year? The difficulty, of course, in our fast-paced world today is, as much as we might like to think we could go back to our natural rhythms, rising with the light of day and retiring with the dusk of night, it just doesn't really work that way. Plus, if you're doing that, you know, your friends to the east are going to be rising a little earlier and your friends to the west are going to be rising a little bit later. But I think it would be a much more pleasant experience, and we needn't go through this, what I believe to be needless exercise twice a year. Move the clocks forward, move the clocks back. I got in the car this morning and I realized I had not yet changed the clock in that one. I'll figure it out at some point. I still made it to work on time. It is on time. It is that time, in fact, to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then it is a very curious case indeed. I feel like I'm going back to my youth and reading Hardy Boys books when we talk about the butter bandits in the city of Guelph. Who is stealing the butter and why? We'll talk about that coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. Stay with us. This is 570 News Radio. Admittedly, it sounds rather strange. Odd for sure, right? somebody stealing butter, but not just a brick at a time. Many bricks, $1,000 worth, and then that $1,000 worth of butter stolen multiple times. To the point that we have ended up with about $9,000 worth of butter stolen from grocery stores in Guelph. It kind of reminds you of the tractor trailer full of pistachios that were stolen from a compound in Wilmot Township, for example. What do you make of all of this? These are curious cases indeed. Mike von Massow is a professor of food agriculture and resource economics at the University of Guelph and joins us on the show to talk about it. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
What do you make of the butter bandits in Guelph?
Well, it's not surprising given prices for everything have come up. Butter has been is more expensive, probably not any more expensive than anything else. And what occurs to me is that it's hard to sell butter. If we don't have, I was joking the other day, you don't have people walking around downtown Guelph with a trench coat going, butter, salted, unsalted, I've got it all. But my expectation is that these are people who have a specific customer in mind, maybe a small restaurant or a bakery, and are stealing butter with a market already in mind, and giving them an opportunity to save money on one of their inputs. I just can't imagine they're selling it for resale to individuals.
Yeah, and you got to one of the things where when I gave this more thought, it did occur to me. I mean, if you're going to steal butter in this quantity, you have to have a buyer in mind, because I can't imagine what you would do with it otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. It's what are you going to do with 200 pounds of butter or 500 pounds of butter or whatever quantities have been stolen in total. And it is, in my view, most likely that they have a specific customer in mind that says, yep, here's what I need, and if you can get it for me, I'll pay you for it.
Well, and you know far more than I, Mike, about the economics in the food industry, but I have to think with margins being what they are and input costs, as you've already alluded to, being what they are today, if a bakery or a restaurant could shave a few percentage points off here or there, they might well be tempted to take the offer that's being made to them for a lower cost butter.
Well, without a doubt, and for businesses, it's not just the cost of inputs. The costs of rents have gone up, employee costs have gone up, everything's gone up. So margins have been squeezed significantly, and so there is, I'm not saying every business would do it by any stretch, but there is clearly an incentive in the current environment to take advantage of opportunities that might come up like this.
Is there a case to be made, or a conversation at least to be had, around the broader story of increased food costs generally? Why we're seeing things like pistachios and walnuts and butter being stolen today? These are high-priced commodities in this day and age.
Well, they are, and I think in many cases they are crimes of opportunity. Because butter is more expensive, but so is beef. And it's much easier to hide a steak in your pocket or your pants or whatever is happening from a shoplifting perspective than it is to hide a pound of butter or a couple of pounds of butter. So there are some things that we're seeing much more likely to be stolen in individual amounts, and we've heard about organized crime hiring people to steal things that are easier to steal from stores. But I think what we're seeing now is also the opportunity to steal specific things that are also more expensive, maybe not the highest value things, but when they have a specific market in mind, bringing together a customer and a product.
I have to think that solving such a crime has a pretty high degree of difficulty because the butter may be in an altered state awfully quickly after it was stolen.
Well, exactly, and it's also relatively easy to move. So doesn't mean that it's a bakery in Guelph that is taking advantage of this. And in fact, you might go to another market, not to think too much like a criminal here, but you might go to another market in order to reduce the chance of getting caught. You know, if you're a bakery in Mississauga or in Cambridge, you might be better off stealing butter or having someone steal butter for you in Guelph than in your own community where it's easier to catch.
I can't help but think at the end of all of this, as we already grumble every time we go to the grocery store these days, the costs will be passed down to us as consumers. Increased security, perhaps, at grocery stores, et cetera?
Yeah. Well, I think we're seeing already in many cases increased security at grocery stores, and it's a reflection of less of the stuff that's going out the back door, like butter, but stuff that's going out the front door, either in pockets or pants, or not getting scanned at the self-checkout. A lot of those security measures, but the stuff that's walking out the back door, like the butter or the pistachios that were from a truck, are increasing the cost. That are increasing the costs in the supply chain, and that invariably gets passed on to consumers.
Really interesting stuff. What a wild time to be alive. Mike, appreciate your perspective on the show today. Thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. Have a great day.
You as well. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Mike Von Masso is a professor of food, agriculture, and resource economics at the University of Guelph. I love the way he describes it. The person stealing the butter would presumably have a purchaser of said product in mind when they make the theft, right? Because it's not as though you're going to steal all of these bricks of butter and then walk around the streets of Guelph with a trench coat. Hey, psst, you want to buy some butter? I got salted, I got unsalted, anything you need. It's like the old trench coat with, hey, you want to buy a watch, right? But I really do think this speaks to where we are at in the food industry, for sure. We know how thin the margins are. And if you are that restaurant owner or that bakery owner that can save a couple of bucks on one of your input costs, wouldn't you at minimum be tempted? Do you ask where the butter came from? Or do you just say, yes, I like your price, I'll buy? And I think that speaks in a more general way to the increasing costs of food today. Never would I ever have thought that I would be working in this business, sharing with you the news of the day, talking about things like thousands of dollars of butter being stolen or tractor trailer loads full of pistachios being stolen, as happened in Wilmot Township last year. But this is where we're at. What do you make of it all? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
But so is beef. It's much easier to hide a steak in your pocket or your pants or whatever is happening from a shoplifting perspective than it is to hide a pound of butter or a couple of pounds of butter.
Mike Von Masso is a professor of food, agriculture, and resource economics at the University of Guelph. Joins us to talk about the butter bandits that have been hitting grocery stores in Guelph. Not all stores have been named, but we know some of them. Bottom line is this: about $9,000 worth of butter stolen over these last many months. And as Mike points out in our conversation this morning, one would presumably have a target market in mind, perhaps a market already secured for said butter before even going into the store and stealing it. I think it speaks in a general sense to the costs of food today and how valuable something like butter has become. Liquid gold. It almost is exactly that when you melt it down. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Walter, what do you make of this?
Well, Mike, I'm going to tell you, I came from the transportation industry. This is nothing new. I don't know why everybody all of a sudden thinks that it's something new. Like anybody, I shouldn't say anybody, but a lot of people in the industry, especially if you own trucks, they have knowledge of that. If you need tires, you go see this guy. If you need something else, then you go see this other guy. And there's been cases of it, going on for years. When I was a young fry, with my father going down into the U.S., he used to carry a gun with him down there because, like the cops told him, don't ever stop for any stoplights in any of the big cities. Just keep going. If you do stop, they'll have your truck half unloaded, before you get up to the next intersection. So it's been going on for years. Maybe it's more prevalent here now, but it's been going on for a long time. And as far as food
but
goes,
even that's the thing, Walt. Like even for product like this, they would be rating your trailer irrespective of what you're carrying.
It didn't matter.
Really,
it didn't matter. So also, all my people came from the farm. I remember years ago that there's a bunch of guys that actually rustled some cattle out of our field. Like one or two or three, and they take them, they slaughter them, and then they would sell the meat. And so it's everywhere, Mike. Maybe it's just becoming more noticeable now. Like with everything else that's going on. But it's nothing new to me, buddy. So you take care, my friend, and I'll talk to you again.
Thanks, Walter. Appreciate it, and certainly for somebody in the industry, and to a degree. When we're talking about tractor trailer loads of stuff, I can see the appeal because there would be tens of thousands of dollars contained within that truck, irrespective of what it is. Going into a grocery store and making off with the butter, a little bit different, but perhaps speaks to the market that's available for the stolen butter. And thanks to Ryan for the email to Mike at 570news.com. I did make the point earlier that with margins what they are in the food industry today, any chance you can shave a percentage point or two off of that, you might be tempted to take it. Ryan reminds me that if we're talking about butter bandits, I should be talking about increasing margarines as opposed to margins. Well done, Ryan. You're a step ahead of me on this Monday morning. Back to the phones. Andre, what do you make of the butter bandits in Guelph?
Oh, thank you, Mike. First, I got an opinion, and I got the answer.
Okay.
So, just like Walter said before, unfortunately, 30 years ago, when I was in the penitentiary, I met these two guys, Alex and Phil. They got caught, so I can mention their name. And they were supposed to hit a truck full of jeans. Very easy to store, very easy to go, but unfortunately it wasn't jeans. So like Walter, they got the wrong information, but it was a truck full of cheese. And I guess they couldn't get rid of it, and they got caught. And unfortunately, about 8 years, and because there was no crime, no violence, they only did about 3 years. So the point is like Walter said, the thing I want to say, the answer, and I had to ask people, why butter? I know I used to carry 8 butters in my fridge, and I only carry 2 because it's expensive. Good point, Mike. But I think the answer is, Mike, and I know the show is tomorrow with Chef and Sergeant, but I think the answer is gummy bears. You need a lot of butter to make gummy bears.
What? Do you?
Illegal gummy bears, TH.
Are you? So you're talking about like
you need butter or margarine.
The cannabis-infused gummy bears? That's what you're talking about, Andre?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I am so ignorant of that whole part of life. It was just never one of my... You can... If that's your thing, I'm okay with that. 100% okay with that. It's just never been my thing. So I didn't know that you needed excess amounts of butter to make cannabis-infused gummy bears. But Andre believes that's where these stolen bricks of butter are being directed. I just find it fascinating. From butter in Guelph to pistachios in Baden to walnuts, food is an increasingly expensive and therefore attractive to thieves commodity. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of our update in the 570 News Center, let's get back to the phones. Hear more from you about the curious case of the stolen butter in Guelph. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. About 25 years ago, I had some friends, and I used to go visit them. So one day, these two girls come in, and they had big jackets on, and they started taking out all this meat. And the guy was buying it. Like, they said, "Do you want some? It's half price, whatever it was back then." And I said, "No, I can't buy this." I said, it's stolen, right? Said, yeah, we do this. I said, you realize the price is going to go up. I'm going to have to pay for this, and what you're doing is wrong. They didn't care. But I went home that night, and I thought and thought and thought, what am I going to do about this? Do I turn them in? Or then again, it's 2 against 1, so if we go to court, they won't believe me. So I let it go, but to this day, I still feel bad about it, like I've done something wrong.
Yeah, I can understand how you would carry that with you, perhaps, Gary. And I don't know what you do. A lot of us, if that offer was made to us and we realized that something was stolen and we chose just to not participate in making the crime worthwhile, but we didn't take the step of actually trying to alert the authorities of what was going on. Listen, I don't think you have to feel too guilty about that, but your conscience, of course, is your own. There has to be a market, and I don't think you would ever be without one, quite frankly. If somebody can get a better deal on something and lower their own costs, they'll do it. And of course, for you, you've taken the risk of stealing the item. Frankly, if you sell it for half price or a third of the price, you're still profiting completely because you didn't pay a nickel for it in the first place. It occurred to me during that commercial break, though, wouldn't it be ironic if the butter bandits were arrested because they make a butter sculpture of the wet bandits from Home Alone? Like if somehow the connection to the butter sculpture of the wet bandits leads us to the butter thieves in Guelph, from one fictional bandit to a real bandit. An update from the 570 News Center, and then Canada's hunger count and its impacts here in the region of Waterloo. We'll learn those impacts next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. It is November the 4th, a Monday, and that makes this the first Monday in the month of November. And on the first Monday of every month at 10:30, we are joined by our friends from the Food Bank of Waterloo Region to talk about all things food bank and food security or insecurity, as the case may be. Kim Wilhelm is the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region with me in studio this morning. It's always great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. I have to say I had a little bit of pause there when you said November, because I'm not sure I've actually heard those words out loud yet. What happened to October?
It goes everything. I thought the summer went fast, and here we are, 6 weeks till Christmas or something?
It's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. But indeed, we are into November, the first Monday of. And in the last week or so, Kim, there's been an awful lot of talk about food insecurity based primarily on the hunger count from Food Banks Canada. But what is it about food insecurity? Why are we hearing so much about it today?
You're right. Many food banks, including ourselves, our national partners, provincial partners, have been releasing hunger reports. And at the end of the day, Mike, nobody should be all too surprised by what we're hearing. We've been talking steadily over the last year about the increasing rights of those who are accessing food assistance. But now to actually hear those annual numbers out loud is pretty disheartening, to be honest with you. We're seeing significant trends of those who are accessing food assistance and continuing having to access food assistance. In Waterloo Region, 1 in 8 households is accessing food assistance. And when we look at just 3 years ago, that number was 1 in 20.
That's an incredible increase from 1 in 20 to 1 in 8. So if we break that down a little further, what does that look like? How many people in this region, Kim, are accessing food assistance?
Our network of community food assistance providers, which we refer to as the Community Food Assistance Network, is made up of over 54 organizations who run over 130 food programs. And together, that network is providing more than 73,000 individuals with food assistance. That's a 25% increase alone just over last year. And amongst that is about 25,000 children. We've seen a significant rise in visits to food hamper programs, over 24% over last year. And one of the trends that we're seeing is people are returning more frequently, sometimes as many as 8 times. Those food hamper programs have spiked more than 24%. And when we look at the visits over the last year, 558,000 visits by 73,000 individuals. And last year, that was 450. So all around, we're seeing increase after increase after increase.
Do we know, because I do know how carefully you track these statistics and monitor these numbers, do we know who it is that's accessing food assistance in our community?
The reality with food insecurity is it's complex. There's no single reason why someone may have to access food assistance. I can tell you that about 11% of the households that are reporting some sort of source of income. And they have at least one family member employed. But the reality is, all around, individuals just don't have the income to buy food. About 19% of the folks who are accessing food assistance are on Ontario Works or Ontario Disability Program, and they still can't buy enough food. We're also seeing seniors relying on old age security are finding it hard to budget for food. Those who are accessing food assistance could be because of a sudden job loss. It could be a health crisis in their family, whether it's themselves or somebody else, but it's resulting in somebody not being able to work. It could be a one-time expense that's just not allowed them extra room in their budget that month. But like I said, the trends are having people returning more frequently, which tells us that it's likely due to things like high interest rates, unaffordable housing, and generally the high cost of living.
So what do these numbers then mean for those of your colleagues at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region and for us as a community?
In short, it means we're not doing enough. The sad reality is there's not one single fix that's going to ensure that these numbers come down. Food banks are at a crisis. We need to do more than just one thing that's going to fix the problem. Nationally, food banks visits have doubled in 5 years. Doubled. 90% increase. So here in Waterloo Region, visits to food hamper programs have more than doubled. We're actually seeing 138% of an increase since 2019. More than doubled. And this rise highlights the urgent need for continued assistance, and it also underscores the importance of long-term solutions to address hunger and poverty in our communities.
You know, it's reminding me of a conversation we had on the show earlier today when we were talking about housing and homelessness. And we know that we can't solve it alone here in the region of Waterloo, despite our best efforts. And we've got so many terrific efforts underway. I know how hard the folks at the Food Bank of Waterloo Region are working, but I can't help but think, governments, municipally and above, provincially, federally, have a role in this, and how we deal with these impacts of rising food costs. So I want to get into that too, but we're up against the clock. So we'll take a quick break and come back with more. Kim Wilhelm, the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, joins us in studio first Monday of every month at this time, 10:30, here on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In studio this morning with Kim Wilhelm, who is the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. Kim joins us on the first Monday of every month at 10:30 so we can get a closer look at the numbers when it comes to food insecurity and food bank use in our region and what we can do about it. And some, sadly, as I'll use Kim's word, disheartening numbers shared as we began this conversation today, including a more than doubling of food bank usage in our community in the past 5 years since 2019. So what can be done about this, particularly, Kim, from the perspective of government, be it municipal, provincial, or federal? What can governments be doing to improve these results?
The reality is it really is a multi-pronged approach. And as we were saying before the break, there's not one single thing that can be done to fix this problem. But Food Banks Canada has released some recommendations that they're putting forward, and we support to help address this. And we're going to break it into both a long-term approach and a short-term approach. Long-term solutions really need to be done to reduce poverty and low incomes. So we're going to target the root causes of poverty. And then the short term are going to help people struggling right now, because that's what we need to do. And so if we look more specifically at these key recommendations, we know that we have to fix Canada's broken social safety net. We know we need to modernize support for low-income workers and resolve our housing crisis. And while these areas are being addressed, we also join Food Banks Canada in urging the federal government to introduce a groceries and essentials benefit for those who need immediate support. And this benefit focuses on providing immediate relief to low-income families. And by adjusting the GST and HST credit that's already established, this benefit ensures extra support reaches those who need it.
We've talked a lot on this show generally about increasing food costs, how upset we get when we go to the grocery store, sticker shock, etc. Mm-hmm. Those increasing food costs must be impacting the food bank too. Absolutely.
It's affecting us in a couple of different ways. The first is individuals who traditionally donate to the food bank through whether it be financial or food donations. They just don't have the extra money in their budgets to say, I have money left at the end of the month, I'm going to make a financial donation. Or while I'm at the grocery store, I'd like to pick up an extra food item for the food bank. We've definitely seen a decrease that way. But it's also affecting our purchase power in terms of the fact that if food is costing you more money, it's also costing us more money. And so we're really looking on different and innovative ways that we can stretch that dollar further, because we're dealing with this high price of food at the same time that we're dealing with an increase of people accessing food assistance, and they're just colliding together constantly to address this.
So this is probably why, at least in part, Food Banks Canada is reporting that 30% of food banks across this country have run out of food before they could meet demand. Mm-hmm. What's the situation here? How's the Food Bank of Waterloo Region doing?
We work with our partners continually to make sure that our programs have enough food. So it's an ongoing effort. I was mentioning to you at the break that we really are looking at numbers daily to make sure to see what the need is. It allows us to adjust our inventory to either get to our programs because, oh, look at this program seeing an increase in food this week. Let's try and get more food on their next order. Sometimes we can do that. Sometimes we can't. But being as proactive as we can to look at trends, plan ahead, which is extremely hard right now because sometimes we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, let alone 6 months from now. We're also seeing food take longer to arrive to us. And so that constant navigation is hard. I'd be lying if I said that some of our programs didn't get enough food some weeks to provide as much to individuals or to as many people, but they work so hard, all the staff, to try and do our best to combat that.
How can people get involved and support the work that you're doing?
Well, first off, I want to recognize that this is challenging for everyone. And so if you have room in your budget at the end of the week, at the end of the month, and you're able to make a financial donation to the food bank, know that we use those donations to fill the gaps in inventory, keep our food stored safely. You can make those donations online at thefoodbank.ca. If you have room in your budget, when you're out at the grocery store and you're able to pick up an extra item for the food bank, please consider doing so. People often say, Kim, what should we donate? And I say, think about things that are high in protein, low in sodium. We also have a most needed items list available on our website, which we're updating regularly at thefoodbank.ca. And if you're able to provide an extra pair of hands, we are always looking for help in our warehouse to make sure that the food is getting out to our partners. You can go on our website and look for volunteer opportunities at thefoodbank.ca. If you don't think that you can, provide the work in our warehouse, there's other opportunities to get involved at events throughout the community. So please check it out. There's lots of different ways for people to get involved.
That website is a great resource. I encourage you to check it out, thefoodbank.ca. Kim, really appreciate the perspective, helping us understand the need in the community, and of course, for the work that you and the entire team at the Food Bank do. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
Kim Wilhelm is the CEO of the Food Bank of Waterloo Region. She joins us on the first Monday of every month at 10:30 here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I can't help but think, as I reflect on that conversation we just had with Kim Wilhelm from the Food Bank of Waterloo Region, and I have read numerous analyses like this over the last many days about what we could do instead with that $200 rebate that the provincial government is going to be providing each of us as a bribe. Sorry, it's just a rebate. Yeah, it's not a bribe if you don't call it a bribe, right? I call it a bribe. And no, you can't buy my vote for just $200. But imagine, if you think of the sum total of this rebate, it's about $3 billion province-wide. And it's very easy for us to think about the sorts of things that we could do as a province with an additional $3 billion. But even conservative math suggests to you that the money coming just to the region of Waterloo, just to us here in the region, will amount to about $100 million. What kind of impact do you think we could have in the region of Waterloo with $100 million? Do you think we could build some supportive housing? Do you think we could help out organizations like the Food Bank, etc.? There is a lot that, even if just a fraction of the people who received the rebate next year decided to collectively donate it somewhere, there's a whole lot of money that could do a whole lot of good. Jody is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Jody.
Hi there. I think it's a very, very nice gesture that that they would even think about giving it back, some money back to the taxpayers. But they always do this eventually. They'll give us a little bit of extra money, and then we'll go back on our normal checks and stuff, and then prices will go up again. And it's nice, but I don't think it's enough.
Well, it's nice in terms of the timing for the provincial government that is almost certainly going to bring us to the polls next spring. So it wants us to hold them in a favorable light. It's nice that way. I don't know how nice it is, though, to be bribed with your own money. Like, this is money that's already been paid in taxes. So it makes one wonder why we paid that extra $3 billion anyway. Nonetheless, this is where we're at. This is not the first time it's happened. It's not going to be the last time it has happened. I got to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then who doesn't love a good story about vinyl? Yes, I'm not talking about the upholstery in your living room. I'm talking about music, records, pressed vinyl with songs on it. And a local musician is getting set for his vinyl release party later this week, pardon me. We'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I don't mind the fire in her eyes. I don't mind the depth of her disguise. She's always looking deeper, and I'll never dare to leave her. I don't mind the fire in her eyes.
Indeed, that is the title of the song, Fire in Her Eyes, by Waterloo's own Kevin Coates, who joins us on the program this morning. Kevin, how does it feel being introduced with one of your own songs on the radio?
Well, that's very exciting, Mike. It's so great to hear from you.
It is great to hear from you in two ways, on the phone for this conversation and also the lovely song, which I believe features Junate as well, does it not?
It does. I was actually just on the phone with him, Mike, to make sure he's listening, because I said, I think they're going to play the song we're on together. He passed along. He said, you are one of the nicest guys he knows. I spent 10 minutes talking him out of that, but that was his assessment of your humanity.
keep working on him, Coatesy, because Junate needs to have his antennae adjusted there if he thinks I'm the nicest, because I would send that right back to him. He's one of my favorite people in this town. There's no doubt about it. And here's one of the things I love, and we'll get to your album in a moment, but the collaborations that musicians here locally have with one another to support one another's work.
Yeah, that's very important. In fact, this particular album, mine, the new album, there are over 30 musicians on this, and it took 4 years to make it from demo to now. Part of that is I play, I think I played over 200 shows last year, so I play a lot. But COVID got right in the middle of it, and that made it so that we had to figure out quickly how to record without people in the same room. So I had to organize and set up a home studio here. It's the first record I've ever done where I'm singing. All the vocals were done at my house, the piano parts, guitars, all kinds of stuff. But it was really important for me to have my friends on this record, because I really had an intention of making a vinyl record as well as CD. And I just really wanted my friends to be sharing the same grooves as a vinyl record, all in the same place. So finally, we're all in the same spot, and it even though that's a product, we're all together forever that way.
Can you take us through the process, Kevin? COVID and its interruption notwithstanding, in the 4-year process of finishing this album, which is entitled Hope. But take us through the process as the musician creating the album.
Yeah, so I did all the demos at my house. By demos, I mean I programmed drum. I wrote the songs, first of all, and then I programmed drums and played keyboard, bass. I'm not a real bass player. I play guitar, but not bass very well. Piano parts, all the vocals, harmonies. I did everything. I'm the producer of this album, so it's the exact way that I wanted it to sound in terms of speed of songs, length of songs, etc. So I did that for about 25 different songs. then I emailed those songs to a lot of friends who kind of critiqued it. That's what I did on my former record as well. So I had about 25, 30 people. I had a scoring system and everything. And they brought it back, and I had narrowed that down to 15 songs, and I ended up putting 13 on the record. So once I decided on the music, then I knew which musicians I wanted on this. At June 8, we've already talked about incredible. My playing partner, Don Featherstone, we play everywhere together. He's a great sax and bass player. My friend Kevin Ramazar lives in New York City. He recorded his parts in his apartment in New York. Incredible drummer Andy McPherson, another good friend. Matt Lima on bass. Jim Edwards on trombone. My buddy Chris Bruce used to play with what's his name? Incredible guitar player, blind guitar player. I can't remember him.
Jeff Healy.
Healy, yeah, Jeff Healy. Tim Moore, great. I also have 4 of my former students. You remember that I used to teach at St. David. I think that's where I met you the first time, actually, St. David High School. So I have former students on this. 2 of them play drums, 2 of them sing. So that once I knew which songs they were, Mike, then I emailed those songs to the specific people that I wanted on each song. So in each of the 13 songs, it's a different configuration of musicians. And they heard the demos. They knew exactly through my intricate notes what I wanted them to do with that. And then for the most part, most of them recorded their parts in their own studios. My buddy lives in Chicago. He and his son did bass and drums on the first track. My friend's a bass player in Halifax. That came back. And others in Collingwood, etc. So they emailed me their parts back, and then I spent thousands of hours editing that on my Mac computer. And then it was ready to mix, and that's when I took it over to the real professionals at Cedar Tree Studios. Love those guys. Ron Chilton and I spent more hours together than I did with my dog Alice Cooper in the last little while. And Rick Hutt mastered the whole thing and mixed one of the tracks. So all of the real professional sound on this album, it was done in an incredible place. And even that I did remotely. Even the mixing with Ron for hours and hours. I was on my back porch with headphones, and in real time, he was mixing, and I could listen to sounds and say, no, less of this, more of that, take that out, etc. So yeah, the remote part was something I loved learning. It was such a learning curve for me, and for so many of these players.
I'm glad you mentioned Cedar Tree and the connections with all of the people who collaborated on this. But I think, the underlying message I'm getting from this, Kevin, is we think about, an arts scene or a music scene. We might think Toronto, we might think Montreal, we might think New York City. This can be done here.
Absolutely. It is such a vibrant music scene. I have friends who are, they're coming to my launch, and they're on the album. It's from a former band that I used to play in for years. We still play once a year called Dorian Wild. We used to play all the universities and so on. Anyways, they live in Burlington, which is where I'm from originally. I moved here in 2001, although I went to university here in the 80s. If you live in Burlington, I used to love playing there, but really you're just playing the odd, Friday night or the odd Saturday. Living here, there's just so many performing opportunities. You can play in bars if you want, almost every night of the week. I've played at the Duke of Wellington since 1981 and have never stopped. I'm there again this month on the 22nd. But it is such a great scene. These musicians that I'm talking about, they are first-rate players, and they play in so many different configurations, and it's just been such an honor to play with them and to be friends with them. And they just bring such a high energy to any recording session we did, and it's all been so positive. It all turned out exactly like I wanted, which things usually don't, right?
I love it. I love it. We may have met for the first time at St. David's, but I saw you perform for the first time at the Duke, because where else would I encounter you and your musical talents? Okay, you mentioned that launch, and I know that's coming up later this week, Kevin. I'm up against the clock. Can you hang on with me, and we'll talk about that launch party?
No problem at all. That's great.
Thank you, my friend. Kevin Coates is with us this morning, a Waterloo-based musician whose new album, Hope, has just been released, and there's a party to celebrate it this coming Thursday. Stay with us as we continue our conversation about the vibrant local music scene here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. In conversation this morning with Waterloo's own Kevin Coates, whose latest album, Hope, has just been released. It's pressed, it's ready to go with a release party later this week at one of the best venues in the region. We'll get to that in just a moment as we continue our conversation with Kevin. His collaborators on this, as far away as New York City, Halifax, Chicago, all coming together on the new 13-song album. How do you feel about the album now that it's done, Kevin?
It's just such a great feeling of accomplishment, Mike. There's just so many layers to every part of this. I have, even in working with Ron Chilton at Cedar Tree, when he and I were mixing these songs, some of these songs, I don't know, I probably have 20 pages of notes of changes. So it's just been wonderful. It's been great having my family as part of it, too. My son, and he plays some percussion. My daughter sings. My wife is a fantastic singer. She sings solo on a song with me. And so they had to live through all this through my home studio. Like, I can't count the number of times they had to hear me sing my own harmonies over top of myself right in the middle of the house. And even at the end of one of the songs, my wife Nan, she lifts up Alice Cooper, our dog, and jiggles her collar toward the microphone. So she actually has a percussion credit as well.
Wait, are you actually going to put Alice Cooper as the percussion credit? I guess maybe not.
Oh, Alice Cooper Coates. You have to go the full name, you know.
Okay, so there you go.
After our conversation today, Mike, I drive to Toronto. And it's like it's the triumphant drive down the highway because I'm actually picking up the vinyl versions. I have the CDs already, but the vinyl just got finished on Friday. And they come in 180-gram delicious yellow, just like Elvis. So I'll be driving home with a big smile on my face for sure as well. Really, what I love most, as I've said a little earlier, is that it turned out so well and represents my friends, these great musicians, so well. So to me, that was essential that it happened.
There is nothing like vinyl. There's no doubt about that.
Well done.
So Thursday, this coming, at the Jazz Room in Uptown Waterloo, just a beautiful, intimate venue, is the release party.
That's right. Yeah, so that's tickets are available. You can just go to Ticket Scene. You can have the easiest way is to go to my website, Kevin Coates. It's COATES.com, and you can just click on that. There still are some tickets left, and you can find them there. So doors are opening, Mike, at 5:45 for those who want to eat and get a great seat there. They're all great seats at the Jazz Room. And music starts at 7:15. The first 35-minute set I'm going to be playing, and I'm playing with other musicians for each of these songs too. That's going to be some of my previously recorded and released material for the first little set. And then the brand new album, Hope, the 13 tracks will be played in order starting at 8:15. And there'll be some backstories, probably too many stories, but
No. See,
I'll try to focus more on the music.
There's no such thing, though, and that's the best part about music live, where you get the stories that come with the songs and then the performance.
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, that June 8 song is an interesting example of that kind of a story. It was a very layered song. We recorded it with drums and bass. June 8's incredible guitar playing, my very busy piano, my harmonies, percussion. And then actually Nan, it's her favorite song on the album, she put it with headphones. And you know when you have headphones, you speak way too loudly and you don't know how loud you're yelling?
Oh, tell me about it. Every day, Kev, every day.
Right. So she's listening to it and she's going, take out the drums, no bass, no harmonies. And she says, she takes her headphones off. She says, I want that song to sound like it's you and June 8 playing to me in an intimate little bar. And that's how I did it. I just started pressing mute buttons and the whole thing changed. So the intimacy of the Jazz Room is exactly what that will capture. I was there the other day just looking around and kind of envisioning how the night will be. My retirement from teaching actually was in the Jazz Room, and we played music till 1:30 in the morning that night with all my former music students. So I really have a connection to that place and really can't wait for all my friends and people who come see me play to come out and enjoy the music on Thursday night.
I hope that they do. Doors at 5:45. The music will get underway just after 7. I will be there with you in spirit, Coatesy. I love the work that you do and your co-conspirators on this album, especially my good friend June. Congratulations on the success of Hope, and I hope you fill that Jazz Room on Thursday night.
Much appreciated, Mike. By the way, there's a little bit of, I haven't lost that this is 2 days after the American election, so that title hope can really go either way, can't it?
It certainly can, my friend. And that's why we need artists in this world, Kevin. That's why we need artists. Thanks for your time this morning.
Have a great day, Mike.
You too. Bye-bye. Kevin Coates is a Waterloo musician. His new album, Hope, he just is headed to Toronto to pick up that vinyl. It's the CD vinyl release party on Thursday night at the Jazz Room. If you'd like to be a part of the intimate audience, you can just visit kevincoates.com, C-O-A-T-E-S, kevincoates.com, and get yourself a ticket to be there on Thursday night for the CD vinyl release party of Hope, the latest album from Waterloo's Kevin Coates. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. This is what happens when I allow David Drewe into the studio early. David joins us every Monday morning at 11:30 for Drew's Views. And I thought, you know what? I have something on my mind, David. Come on in early. And before I can even get to what's on my mind, he's got quibbles. You've got quibbles. Why are you quibbling with me this morning?
Should I start with the nicer one?
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
So as I was driving in, I heard that apparently Junate thinks you are one of the nicest people ever. And you were quibbling with that. And all I could say is Junate, I think a lot of us would say, is also one of the nicest people ever.
Hands down.
So when somebody like that offers you a compliment, you take it humbly. No, you don't get all jerky like you did.
He's a musician, and musicians are weird. So what? But he's nice. He's a very nice weird.
And he gives of his time and talent to our community.
He does. He's incredible. All right, your other quibble. You don't like me saying, why did they tax us $3 billion extra in the province?
Yeah, because it's not like they taxed us $3 billion extra. We are still in debt. I do not know when Ontario is planning on emerging from its debt, or if it ever will, because we've been promised that for like 20-some years now. But compound interest on $3 billion, it's our grandkids whose money was spent. This wasn't we were taxed too much. This is we just spent it on stupid things.
That's an excellent point. Okay, this is not yet Drew's Views. That'll start after the news update at 11:30, 90 seconds from now. Let me tell you what was on my mind and why I thought, let's just bring David into the studio a little earlier. It occurred to me randomly this morning that, and I don't know why it occurred to me so profoundly this morning, but by sometime later this week, we could have finished the counting and determined that indeed the United States of America has a black female president. Like, what kind of world are we living? That could be reality later this week.
For half of Americans.
No. She will be the president, whether anybody likes it or not.
Well, it's a question of whether they believe it or not.
Well.
No, and this is seriously the scary thing with that election is, so you and I are going to believe she won. But we've been seeing the texts coming out from some of these electoral commissions in the swing states where they're already saying, okay, so we'll say this, and if that doesn't work, then we could say this. And they're already coming out with their excuses to invalidate the election results. They were like conspiring and planning ahead. So that is the mindset that she will be, like, forget about the race and the gender. It's just the whole Donald Trump election steal thing she's also up against. It's going to be ugly no matter who wins. I'm very afraid.
We have got boots on the ground in Washington, and they will be a part of our show tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to talk about the scene in Washington and everything that is at stake in this election. That's tomorrow. David Drewe is here today, as he is every Monday at 11:30. Drew's Views begins officially right after this update from the 570 News Center. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Has anybody heard from Crazy Dave? Now, that cat couldn't spell to win a bet, but he carried this battered notebook full of his poetry. More soul per square word than the Lord's Prayer. He was the kind of guy that called a spade a shovel, and a violin a fiddle, and a lady ma'am. And I don't even know why I think of him now. Maybe because he never told me a lie he'd have to apologize for later. Because he'd speak to a guy straight. Eyeball to bloodshot eyeball.
like he'd never even had a secret.
He is our friend, David Drewe, owner, negotiating change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies. He joins us every Monday morning at 11:30 for Drewe's Views. We let him on early today. All he wanted to do was quibble. That's fine. I like a good quibble every now and again. Officially, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
You want to begin by talking about the notwithstanding clause today, which I find, full disclosure, maybe a decade ago, I probably had not even heard of the notwithstanding clause, didn't really understand what it was all about, why it would be invoked. Now I think I feel as though me and the notwithstanding clause are like best friends. I know everything about it because I hear about it so much.
Do you find yourself using the word notwithstanding in conversations just because it's like that whole infatuation thing?
Absolutely. And when I'm dressed for Christmas this year, I am going to be the notwithstanding clause.
I am trying to visualize that, and I'll stop.
Okay, just a Santa suit.
The notwithstanding clause is a Santa suit?
Well, Santa Claus. So I know it's past Halloween. I know I'm mixing metaphors, but this Christmas, will dole out gifts to the family as the notwithstanding clause.
I'm sorry, I just had no idea how bad your sense of humor is.
And now you do. First he quibbles, then he tells me how rotten my jokes are.
I'm all Statler and Waldorf over here.
Anyway.
If you'd have told me a month ago that we'd have more than a dozen big city mayors signing a letter asking the premier to invoke the notwithstanding clause, I would have asked you to sober up.
But he challenged them to do it. He double dog dared them.
Absolutely. I just didn't think this many would I didn't think any, to be honest, would pick up the mantle. And I also didn't take it seriously. And so that's just it. You have the media saying, and they're calling his bluff. And you're wondering, is it the media? Was Doug Ford bluffing, or was he asking for the cover that he has just been given by these mayors to go outside the box and trying to look like he is solving this problem?
I think it's the latter, David. I really do.
I really think so as well. And that's why I found the coverage of this being pursued as them calling his bluff very, very interesting. I'm thinking, so whose advantage would it be to be him bluffing here? The mayors. So Doug Ford's getting what he wants. And he's even getting more credit for it in a way because the fingerprints are all on the mayors rather than him because he was only bluffing. Isn't it interesting?
Oh, it's super interesting.
But I don't hear a whole lot of objections to this. I do not hear a whole lot of people coming forward and saying, oh my gosh, this is the worst thing in the world, like we did when Doug Ford threatened to use it with union negotiations and back down. Or was it with the city of Toronto when he changed the words on that? There was so much hue and cry. But now it's sort of like this came out on Thursday or Friday, and Friday it must have been.
It came out late Thursday afternoon. QP Briefing reported on it first, and I believe leading with Alex Nuttall, the mayor of Barrie, that started it.
And that's the interesting thing about it, too. You have Alex Nuttall, who's a former Conservative MP, and then you also have, I forget his first name, but the last name is Lamoureux, or Lefebvre, Paul Lefebvre, who's the mayor of Sudbury, ex-Liberal MP. An ex-Liberal MP asking for the notwithstanding clause is like an ex-Conservative MP asking for a tax increase.
But it lands differently when you're the mayor of the municipality, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But it just makes you wonder how many of these Liberal MPs who are in right now swearing up and down that the notwithstanding clause is the worst evil ever for the Charter of Rights and Freedoms would be just like Paul Lefebvre.
It's a very interesting point. So I see two reasons for this basically non-reaction to it. One is I think we have very quickly grown numb to the usage of the notwithstanding clause or the invocation of it. I think that's part one. Part two, in this case specifically, I truly believe, David, we have reached a tipping point in so far as communities are saying enough. Like we're sorry, but we have waited long enough. We have, I don't know. I'm not comfortable saying tried enough things already, but it's just, I believe we have reached tipping point.
There is a wide and broad enough swath of Ontarians who are absolutely okay with this because they see the end justifying the means.
Right.
And that's what sort of separates this, I think, from a lot of the other ones. You know, when it was going after collective bargaining rights with unions, you know, you've got people like me who think unions are continually engaging in overreach. But you don't fiddle with the collective bargaining process, but as the government, and put your finger on the scales to fix it. You know, like that was, you know, even for someone like me, that was a little bit of overreach, guys. Like, what are you thinking? In a case like this, every community in Ontario is dealing with this, and every community in Ontario has been unable to solve the problem with the tools they have. And, like, honestly, from the mayor's perspective, this is a great way to put the pile on Doug Ford's doorstep. Instead, you know, like, we have asked for more powers just as he requested we do. Until they get them, they can keep pointing at him because he's opened the door for that. But they've all been, citizens everywhere have been seeing the lack of progress on this issue. They've been seeing it get worse despite everything. And yeah, when you hear about people who need help with addictions or mental illness issues, you sort of wonder, well, what could happen if we got them help rather than just letting them live in these situations?
It's a very interesting time, and I'm very curious to watch these events unfold. All right, from provincial politics to federal, and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre going off-brand?
It wouldn't be fair for Justin Trudeau to resign. Oh, my God. Keep in mind, I did not actually hear these words coming out of his mouth. But all the quotes of fairness, it wouldn't be fair for... It's like, I've never heard him sound like a whiner before. I've never heard Pierre Poilievre sound like that dude who was appealing to the fine print of the rule book as to fairness and things like that. He's been the person on the aggression, and that's just felt very, very weird. And I do not picture him going back and appealing to fairness very, very much because it makes... I'm sorry. I'm going to be blunt. When you are appealing to fairness in a situation like this, you're a loser. You know what I mean? It's like, I have nothing else to go to. I have no black letter law. I have no precedent. I have nothing to say other than this vague, amorphous, qualitative word. It's just not fair. Why? What's unfair about Justin Trudeau resigning? I don't know.
Well,
It's
then you
not
don't
fair.
then you don't get to beat him in the election.
It's not fair.
Or there might be somebody better that replaces him and you might lose the election.
It's not fair. They might put somebody better in and I'll have to run against somebody else. That's not fair. Like, I know I'm overstating this way too much, but there's a reason he generally has not made appeals like this. And it's because they don't land. And I just found this one very, very weird. I do not know if the head of the comms shop was on vacation that day or what they were thinking, but who is this argument to? Who is this argument? Like, is somebody going to shift their votes on this? Is there anybody whose attitude is going to be changed over Pierre Poilievre appealing to the fairness of this situation? You know what I mean? It was just, out of all the things that you could talk about that day, that was waste at best.
Well, he doesn't have to worry about it. Justin Trudeau's not going to resign anyway. So he won't have to worry about fairness or the lack thereof.
Well, let's wait until tomorrow gets settled.
Okay. What's getting settled tomorrow?
The American election.
Oh, right.
And no, but,
well, I mean later this week. It's not going to be settled tomorrow.
Well, depending on who you ask. Yeah.
We may have a declaration of some sort tomorrow night, but whether or not it's settled remains to be seen. David Drewe joins us every Monday morning, 11:30. Drewe's Views here on the Mike Farwell Show. Stay with us. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Wednesday morning. Why am I moving I want the U.S. election to be over. I'm already moving the week ahead. Monday mornings, 11:30. This is Monday. David Drewe joins us for Drewe's Views. David is the owner of Negotiating Change, government relations, stakeholder engagement strategies, the untapped potential of parking lots. David, I've got so many thoughts on this. So many thoughts. What are yours?
Well, the provincial government is looking for crown lands, to identify crown lands for renewable energies. And the CBC actually had the article where they've got the experts coming out and saying, you know, rather than going it off in some distant crown land for solar, it would just be more ideal to put the panels on top of parking lots. You would get by their, the parking lot would power the mall. It would provide more than enough power to power the mall and return some to the grid. The problem with doing it at a distance is you have the line loss. So you want the power source close to where you're using it. And we have all these parking lots right next to these giant suckers of power. And it's like, well, yeah, okay, how much are we getting here or there? But it's like, we are taking these massive things off the grid then. And as we all should be aware, we do not have enough grid for 2030. We do not know where how our electricity needs are going to be met. That's why the province is talking about expanding the nuclear plants, and we're talking about some pretty, I don't want to say crazy, some pretty ambitious ideas in terms of power generation. But, you look at somewhere like Fairview Mall, you look at somewhere like Conestoga Mall, wow. And this is the beauty, the advantage of parking lots over fixed buildings is you can angle the solar panels any direction you want for the ideal maximum efficiency. So it's just this neat little thing, and the most expensive part of it would be just building the carport frames over it.
See, I was wondering if you could put the solar panels atop the buildings that you put on those parking lots. We need housing on parking lots, don't we? Listen, I will appeal to the magnanimous nature of Cadillac Fairview, okay? Surely they could be persuaded. There's enough financial incentive, I would think. You just talk about those carport frames. So put the buildings, give me 3 or 4 stories on every parking lot, and then put the solar panels on top of those buildings. Huh? There's some untapped potential on parking lots, friend.
Wow. I'm thinking back to my days in student government, and I think it was $10 a parking spot for a surface spot and $10,000 a spot for underground or above ground parking. There's costs when you get around to things like that. But, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm the anti-housing guy.
I get you.
But, let's be honest. What's more likely to happen in the next few years? And depending on the payback, it might be worthwhile just doing in the short term while, heck, do it for the 5 years for the payback and then another 5 years to get the down payment to build the housing. Who knows?
I'm just trying to be like Doug Ford and give away all of the money. My promises don't attach a financial component to them. I'm just happy making the promises.
Where's my 200, Mike?
It's coming. It's coming next year. Slow down. Wait your turn. It's coming. Is it going to work, though? Is it going to buy your vote?
No, I mean 200 from you. You said you're going to be just like Doug Ford, so I want 200 from you.
Yeah, as soon as I get it from Doug Ford, I'll give it to you.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The language police are now involved in the foreign interference inquiry. Who is policing the language at committee, David?
That's exactly the issue.
Nobody?
No.
Where are the language cops when we need them? You can never find a language cop.
No, but we have the official languages commissioner who is really, really grouchy with Justice Ogue right now because some of the evidence that has been published by the commission is in English only. And according to the official languages commissioner, this is illegal and you are a federally constituted body. Therefore, you have to follow the Official Languages Act. And as you publish things, they have to be available in both languages. And the commissioner says, I don't have the budget to translate this volume of documents. It would take 3 years to get all of them translated. So, no, I can't get it. It would not happen during my mandate. And so these two are going at each other in the quasi-judicial bodies, and it's probably going to end up in court if they have time. And we are funding both sides of the fight as taxpayers. like, remember earlier we were talking about how we come up with all these reasons to not get things done, and all, like, this is just the perfect example of what is so Canadian. You know, here we are trying to figure out foreign interference, and we have the useful idiots at home saying, well, no, we don't want your report unless you can commit the impossible task of building a bridge of sand across the ocean and draining the ocean with a teacup. It's just idiocy. And we are funding both sides of the idiocy.
So we've lost the plot, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have all of these bodies out there with the mandates to ensure fairness. And, you know, it's fairness from this perspective, fairness from that perspective. And so what's the end result? Well, fairness is more important than finding out who's been dicking around with our democracy. And as a guy who likes to vote and believes in democracy even when my team loses, I kind of think, yeah, they've lost the plot. And forget the baby in the bathwater. They're just, stupid. And it's all over. It's the institutions, you know. And the official language commissioner, I'm sorry, he's doing his job. It's his job to throw wrenches in the works. This is what we do. We fund people to throw wrenches in the works.
Right. This is the system that we have created. It is by our own design.
Yeah, this is a feature, not a bug. So, yeah, welcome to Canada.
You know, it's only Monday, David. We have not yet gone through the turmoil that will be tomorrow in the United States. And I'm already ready to give up. Like, you've worn me down to the nub, and it's not even yet noon on a Monday.
If it'll make you feel better, I can hang around for calls and like make everything sound so depressing.
Why can't we do big, important things?
Because we spend all our time coming up with all the theoretical reasons why somebody might want to say no, and we fund them. It's like, well, the environment's an issue, and I'm picking on the environment, but, the environment's an issue, so we fund all these groups to say, here's the problem with getting things done. We find reasons to say no, and it's like when we were talking about the police and why they can't act on Friday. It's like, all of these reasons are good individually, but what we add up to is a system where getting things done is impossible.
Exactly. We get things done on this show. Every Monday morning at 11:30, David Drewe joins us with Drew's Views. I usually enjoy these conversations. Now I'm a little bit bummed out, I'm not going to lie.
It's because you wouldn't accept the compliment from Junaid. You're still bummed about that.
I started on the wrong foot with Junaid. He's such a good guy, too.
Yeah.
David Drewe is the owner of Negotiating Change. Government relations and stakeholder engagement strategies. Drew's Views, Monday mornings, 11:30. Here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Well, would you look at that? We are 1 minute away from noon. If you forgot to fall back this weekend, it's not 1 minute away from 1, okay? Change your clock. It is 11:59 a.m., not 12:59 p.m. I'm going to get you in that 1 minute to the 570 News Center for an update. And then I'm going to open the phone lines strictly for you to air your grievances. It's rant or rave on our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Maybe you want to rant about the way we paint lines entering new roundabouts in the region of Waterloo. Have you seen the one at Wilson and Wabanaki? It's on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. It's very confusing and dare I say dangerous. Maybe you want to rave about the Kitchener Rangers and their 9-game winning streak. Something going on in your neighborhood that you want us to know about? Let us know during the next hour of open lines, rant or rave on your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Thanks to our friends at Rogers TV Cable 20 for producing the TV side of this show. They're done for another day. Here comes your update and then open lines on the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. So long, Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that
bad.
Well, in fact, we would like it if you do the opposite of what the song suggests. Instead of don't talk back, we want you to talk back during this Talkback Hour. Open phone lines so we can hear from you. 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. And because it's Monday, in keeping with tradition here on this radio station, it's your rant or rave edition of the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Let's get to the phones. Lisa, start us off. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
I'm good as well.
Good.
I'm good. I'm going to rave today. We were at the Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band show last night. What a concert. It's been 40 years since we saw them at Exhibition Place when it was the Born in the USA tour. And I know he's over 70, and some of the guys that are playing with him are in the same ballpark age range, but they played for 3 hours straight. These guys have so much energy. Pretty much all my favorite songs, and I mean, I would go to see them again in a heartbeat, except it is a little pricey.
When did concerts get so ding-dang expensive, Lisa? My goodness.
Well, I mean, you could probably get nosebleeds we were on the floor, and we were fairly close. So we've gotten to a point in our life where we figure if we're going to do it, we may as well try to do it right and get as close as we can and really enjoy it. So, but it definitely, the prices have gone way up in the last few years. So, it's one of those things that I really appreciate live music. We have a son that plays drums and used to be in a band with a bunch of his buds, but it's just something that we really enjoy doing, and anyone that gets a chance to go to that show, I would say just go for it. So anyway, have a good Monday, Mike.
Just before I let you go, sorry, Lisa, where was he playing last night?
Scotiabank Arena.
Oh, he's in Toronto.
Yeah, and the 6th is another show, and there may still be tickets if anyone's thinking, I should do it. He says he's not planning on slowing down, but I know this show was postponed from last year, so basically I've had these tickets for a year and a half. You never know what life will bring to you, and that's one of the things that he talked about last night. So appreciates everything that he's got, and they still really enjoy performing, and it's well worth it.
Love to hear it. Lisa, thanks for the call.
Yeah, take care.
You too. Great to hear from you. Just goes to show how much I've mentally blocked out the city of Toronto, eh? Honestly, I just had this conversation yesterday with somebody. I don't know why I'm blanking on who. But anyway, we were talking about the absolute chore it is getting into or out of Toronto and how it just has next to no interest for us these days. We saw Springsteen on that same tour about a year ago in Buffalo and loved it too. And so I'm with Lisa. And some of those things, you get to that point in your life where it's worth it, or you want to go for the, higher priced ticket. And it became a really interesting conversation at home because when Shania Twain was out on tour and she was coming to Hamilton and the cost was about $250, and my beloved said, no, that's too much. I'm not going to spend it on Shania Twain. I'm like, but it's Shania Twain. How many other times might you get to do this? But everybody's got their breaking point, don't they? I'm glad Lisa enjoyed that show. I'd pay $250 to see the Boss again for sure. That's what we paid the first time. Ian, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. I enjoyed listening to Drew's views just 15, 20 minutes ago, and wanted to give some perspective as a guy who's been doing this for a while in regards to the solar aspect and covering parking lots. It's something that I've been saying probably for a good 15 plus years now, because if you look at Mississauga as you drive along the 401, all these industrial parks that have flat roofs, and it's like, why are you not putting, this energy sucker into the grid? So I think France has also been doing this for a while with some really good success. But I wanted to give some perspective for yourself and for the listeners, especially when we talk about the 2030 aspect of where we're going to get our energy from. when I did my system, which is 14 years ago, it was 48 panels, and it was a 210-watt panel, and that cost me between $800 and $900, or roughly $4 per watt. So crazy expensive. And today, I can now get easily a 600-watt bifacial, which means both sides panel, for like around 40, 50 cents, or even less. And these things are like way more efficient, way more powerful. And, you know, with the, parking lots doing absolutely nothing, why would we not consider doing this to help with the grid aspect? And to that point as well, of course, the electric vehicle aspect of things, everyone thinks, oh, well, they're just sucking down the grid. How are we going to charge these things? But what they're forgetting is that an electric car is a large battery, 75 kilowatts, that actually interacts with the grid. And that's an area that we're, slowly getting more into. So if the grid said, hey, we need some more power, especially, say, at night or something, the cars actually can integrate with the grid that respect. So it's not just sucking it away, it's actually giving back to it as well. But put it this way, I've been following this industry for a long time. It's only improving all the time. And if you think of it this way, 2007, when the iPhone kind of came out, and then you look at the technology now, what you have on your smartphones, that's exactly what's happening with EVs and the solar and everything else. So, it's a huge opportunity for us. And I really hope that they kind of follow suit on this stuff because, hey, every day pretty much the sun shines, we get some energy. So let's use it.
All right. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate the call and some additional perspective from Drewe's Views, which is on every Monday morning between 11:30 and noon. And then from noon until 1 on Mondays, it's your rant or rave edition of the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. You want to be a part of it? Just pick up the phone and join the conversation. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. You can join the conversation here on the Talkback Hour with a simple phone call to us at 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Right back to the phones we go. Asif, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great.
Good.
I just have I want to ask you something. What's your favorite restaurant?
Oh, my goodness. My favorite restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough one. I have so many that I enjoy. Like I'm a classic, Ethel's and Morty's guy. I enjoy Beer Town and Uptown. Cambridge Restaurant and the Heart of Preston is one of our favorites. The Fiddle makes great wings down there in Preston. I mean, how long you got? And I did not even mention the Metro for some great schnitzel. Oh, my God. The Edelweiss. I mean, as if I could eat out every day for the rest of my life.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I was wondering, have you ever thought of hey, I have to go to the website to check out how much their prices cost, what they have and everything, right?
Yes.
And it's such a pain in the butt, right?
Yes.
And so what I'm doing is I'm creating an app right now, which basically will have everybody just you can go to the app and you can go to the restaurant and it'll be on the map. It'll show you exactly where it is. And all you have to do is just go onto it and then you can find the restaurant and the menu.
Really?
Yeah. I'm on the the design right now and I'm hoping to have it done within 2 months.
Well, that's a very interesting idea.
Yeah.
So basically, I would just pick my favorite restaurant and then go onto your app, and it would give me the menu for that restaurant.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And I'll be doing it right now only for Kitchener Waterloo, just to start up. But then I'll go for other cities whenever they within a few months, basically upstairs twice. So.
What are you going to call it, Asif?
See, that's my main problem. If you're going to ask all your listeners, what can I call it? I would be happy.
Maybe together we can come up with something.
Yeah.
But then we're all going to need a share of the profits, Asif.
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Asif. Good to hear from you. A very interesting idea. Imagine that. And just 2 months away from launch. I hope nobody else is going to beat Asif to his own idea. Nobody would do that. Mark, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. I was listening to the segment with Kevin, the musician guy.
I was thinking of you when Kevin Coates, yes, the musician guy, mentioned...
And did he bring up the name Alice Cooper?
Yes, his dog's name is Alice Cooper.
I can't believe it.
I thought of you right away because every time All Request Friday rolls around, you want to hear Alice Cooper.
So is that like one of his favorite bands or something? Or?
Well, I mean, I don't know how there could be any other explanation. Why would you name your dog Alice Cooper if your favorite band was the Tragically Hip?
I just love it. Okay, Mike. Hey, listen. What about those Rangers, buddy?
How about those Rangers?
I can't believe it. I can believe it. Keep it rolling. Keep it rocking and rolling, boys.
All right, Mark. Appreciate the call. It's been quite the run for the Kitchener Rangers. 9 straight wins, 14 games with at least a point, dating back to September the 28th. That was the last Rangers regulation loss. So it's been a whole lot of fun. I've been asked the question an awful lot. I can tell you 2 things. One is the record for longest winning streak in the OHL and, in fact, in the CHL is 25 games. That record just also happens to be held by the Kitchener Rangers back in 1984. So there's that piece of it. And believe it or not, it was only 5 years ago, how quickly we forget, that the Kitchener Rangers won 10 straight hockey games. 10 in a row. They did that starting in November of 2019 and going up until December the 20th, the last game before Christmas when they lost to the Sioux Greyhounds. But there was 10 straight wins for the Rangers in that stretch. And then after Christmas, they went on a 15-game unbeaten in regulation streak. So, should the Kitchener Rangers be successful on Friday night versus the Sioux Greyhounds in at least getting a point, they will have matched that 15-game point streak from back in 2019-2020. And if they pick up a victory on Friday night versus the Sioux, they will match their 10-game winning streak from that same season. But it's a long way away from the 25-game record in the OHL. But this is still a lot of fun, isn't it? 9 games in a row after the Rangers beat the Saginaw Spirit yesterday, 4-2. This is your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. We continue on 570 News Radio. Talkback Hour is open to your calls. So let's get right back to the phones. Hear more from you. Dylan, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon. I just jumped on. Sorry, I just brought this up already, but I just want to express some disappointment in my neighbors. I live in an area where a lot of people are celebrating Diwali. The fireworks on Friday night started at 6 p.m. and went until after 1 a.m. in the morning. Normally, when people light fireworks off, they go to a parking lot, some sort of open area. Fireworks were being lit off 5 feet from people's front doorsteps. They were bouncing off of houses. I went outside at points in time, and it's like a house was burning down because the street was full of smoke. Totally unacceptable. I called bylaw. Obviously, they were overwhelmed, didn't see them come. Like, just zero respect for the community and the neighbors that they have. And like I said, I'm thoroughly disappointed.
I can understand that. Just so you're aware, though, in case you didn't know, you're not allowed to take them to a park and set them off there. You have to do them on your own private property.
Okay, well, if your private property is a townhouse with very little backyard and no front yard, should you be lighting them off? Like, I think the rule is 25 or 50 feet from a building structure. There isn't 50 feet from one house to the next house. And I'm not talking a couple fireworks, Mike. I've never seen, I love fireworks. But this, there was 6 hours of continuous fireworks. It didn't stop. It was unbelievable.
Dylan, I understand the frustration, and I appreciate the call. I just wanted us to be clear on what the bylaws state. I will also add to that, and I expressed this on social media myself last week and on the air. In my humble opinion, fireworks are our new Ezra Avenue in this community. Because, look, it may have been on occasion of Diwali, but anyone who could get their hands on fireworks last week, because we were allowed to set them off in celebration of Diwali, then anyone who could get their hands on them got their hands on them. And we have, for some reason, determined and decided that we will set them off at all hours, in all places, people and houses and cars be damned. Right? It just seems to be the general attitude around fireworks these days. It is most unfortunate. And truly, again, I do feel for you. I do. Because I don't know the answer. I don't know how we actually fix this problem, which it absolutely is. It is a problem. In my neighborhood, it was no more than a nuisance of fireworks going off well past 11 p.m. And in fact, in our neighborhood, back last Thursday, when they weren't even legally allowed, in Kitchener, they were only allowed last Friday. But anyway, that was the only complaint. And our dog doesn't love them, but minor compared to what Dylan just described. Fireworks are our new Ezra Avenue. And no matter what we do, we could say tomorrow that fireworks are no longer allowed for any celebration in the city. But you know as well as I do, just like many people have been doing with pesticides for decades now, they'll get their hands on them, fireworks, if they want them, and they'll set them off whenever the hell they please, because that's kind of what's happening now. So I don't know the solution to the problem, but I'm sorry that it is such a problem in your neighborhood. Your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Well, look at that. Now I don't even have to remind you of the numbers to get in touch with us. I'll just remind you that this being Monday is your rant or rave edition of the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Got a rant because you're upset about something? Got a rave because you're happy about it? We're happy to hear from you on either of those fronts. Back to the phones we go. Toll-free Jay, my man, good afternoon.
Well, Dylan was right. The fireworks kept me awake, too, the other day.
Yeah, the fireworks were out of control last week.
And also, I do have a possible... I know Asif is developing a program for the future.
Yes.
I wanted to give him a possible title, Acquire an Appetite Through Asif.
Acquire an Appetite. It's a little bit long, Jay, for an app, but you never know. It might work.
Well, maybe I should have an app about the app and rethink it, but if you do a couple of A's, it'll be an easy way to remember it.
All right. Acquire an appetite through... maybe it's the triple... probably a triple A's been taken. Anyway, I like it.
Absolutely. Although you are one of my favorite people, sir.
Well, that's very kind of you. Thank you, Jay.
Pittsburgh will do better next week.
I hope so. Who do we have next week?
I haven't checked that. I know they were off this week.
Yeah.
But you're not sure who they're playing?
No, not off the top of my head. I just know the schedule gets tougher from here for my Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, that's okay. We're ready for it. Let's go.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon, sir. Thank you for the help, and we'll enjoy the Maple Leafs tomorrow night.
Thanks, Jay. Appreciate it. Always good to hear from you. I always enjoy the Maple Leafs, win, lose, or otherwise, except in the playoffs. I'm tired of the losing in the playoffs. Regular season, I can handle it. Give me 82 games of losing. That's fine. Just get in the playoffs and stop losing there. Could we do that? Would that be all right with you? Leafs lost back-to-back games on the weekend. But Kitchener's own native son, Steven Lorentz, scored one of the Leafs' goals over the weekend. He's now scored a couple in 13 games on the season. 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues. Andre, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Couple points. So I'll rant and a rave. The first one is, again, the Kitchener Ranger game. The Hushers, are they paid or is that volunteer, Mike?
Oh, no, ushers are paid.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that as a disabled person, they're just amazing. And even as a normal people that go there, they're just amazing how to help and to guide. It's just peaceful, humble. I met this one guy, Richard. He actually brought me right to my seat and told other usher, I was a big fan of yours. So thanks, Mike.
That might not get you very far in some places, Andre, if you say that you're a fan of mine. That might.
I didn't.
Okay, good.
He said, are you Andre from the Mike Farwell show, right?
Oh, dear.
How can I say no if I can't, right?
Gotcha.
But anyway, he brought me to my seat, and it was very nice. And I would just want to say a big thank you to all the team that is there. My second one is, unfortunately, the fireworks. It's true what the second caller said, that it was very pleasant for the kids because they love fireworks. It's good for us. Our dog doesn't mind it. She's very focused compared to the two other ones. But I just, for one, it did go overboard, the law. But that's them. That's the law, But I just don't want this to be like an umbrella for everybody, because I will agree 100%. I've never seen Canada Day as much that there was at their party. And so that's a little bit embarrassing for Canada. So have a good day, Mike.
Thanks, Andre. Appreciate the call. I'm glad that your regular appearances on this show are making you famous with the ushers at the Kitchener Memorial Auditorium. It's awesome. From one famous regular caller to another. Grant, good afternoon.
Yeah. What a waste of airtime tomorrow on this show.
Wait, what? Did you just say this show is a waste of airtime?
No, for tomorrow. I mean.
What do you mean for tomorrow?
Is it?
I haven't even started tomorrow's show yet. How do you know it's going to be a waste?
Because I was asking your co-worker.
You were asking Wobbles, our guy on the other side of the glass today, Colin Robertson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All day long or just at night? No, all day long.
What's all day long?
Talking about the election.
What? Grant, I mean, it might be the biggest story in the world tomorrow.
I could care less.
Well, you might not care, but you could not care less. I have to jump in on that one because somebody else used it recently, and I had to say, it chafes my chaps. Grant, you could not care less. If you could care less, that means you care enough that you could actually care less about other things. So you could not care less about the election. You could not possibly. Anyway,
well, it gets very annoying with the states because they go on for maybe a year or more of pre-election.
Oh yeah, that's a big deal, right? You got the midterms, and then it's crazy. It's like a constant election cycle.
It doesn't make sense. So if I'm working at CNN, I'm bringing it up once, and that's it. No more.
Well, if CNN did that, they wouldn't have 24-hour-a-day news coverage, would they?
Well, maybe if they talk about more pressing things, like people dying in third world countries, not getting enough food, but they go overboard.
All right. Well, listen, you're not going to get an argument from me that CNN goes overboard. Believe you me, it was a great idea when it first hatched. I'm not so sure it has matured into what we had hoped it would be, but that's just me. It's not my cup of tea. Having said that, I will maintain that tomorrow's presidential election in the United States is the biggest story in the world. And let this just sink in for a moment. I mentioned it about an hour ago with David Drewe when he was on for his weekly feature, Drew's Views, on Monday mornings at 11:30. And I said to him, has it sunk into you yet that by later this week, we could conceivably, I mean, some polls have her, it's very close, but have Kamala Harris as the leader. It's possible that by later this week, we have a black female U.S. president. That's a big, hairy deal, my friend. Also, I'll remind you that we've got boots on the ground in Washington tomorrow. We'll get that perspective straight from the U.S. Capitol tomorrow on the show at 10. And then we've got coverage right through tomorrow night while the votes are being counted. So, yes, you will get all kinds of coverage of the biggest story in the world tomorrow, and we will keep you covered. here on 570 News Radio. This is your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. Mondays mean it's the Rant or Rave edition on 570 News Radio. Right back to the phones we go. It's a busy Talkback Hour this Monday afternoon. Ibrahim, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Good.
I like your show, but you know what I don't like is for this station?
Sorry, which don't you like?
Commercial break.
Oh, commercial break. Hey, buddy, they got to pay my
money, right?
my salary is so high, Ibrahim. I want more commercials.
I know, but okay, let's the subject. My rave is to the provincial government. You remember that 2 weeks ago, I think that the table is the bill for asking municipalities, to get permission to install bike lanes.
Yeah, the provincial government wants to remove some bike lanes. Yeah,
I absolutely agree 100% with them. And yesterday I was reading, I think last Friday, I was reading also in the downtown area, some of the streets they selected, like Bloor and University, and they want to scrub it, the one, they remove it at lanes. So I think we should have here too. If you look at in downtown Kitchener, Mike, or in Waterloo between Columbia until you come to the bridgeboard, all you go from King Street to down to University to Waterloo. All they put it, all of the things that made very narrow for the cars. Because the way this street they built is a long time ago, they didn't have in their mind because they will have in the future, they didn't make it wide. So I think they should remove it that. And I will tell those mayors, if they're listening, stop whining and do whatever the government is, they're telling you, the provincial government, because they know how to, 95% of the cars we are using for the street. Who anyway the big bicycles using in the winter time? So I would say 100% with the provincial government for this legislation.
All right, Ibrahim, thank you for the call. If you want bike lanes in this region ripped out based on what the province is doing around bike lanes, I wish you luck. Doug Ford's eyes are solely on the city of Toronto. He's got a great interest in the city of Toronto, less of an interest in the region of Waterloo. But your point is taken. You also are fed up with bike lanes. Paul, over to you on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing today?
Real good. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
Good.
If I was any better, there'd be two of me. Hey, listen, what's the population of the U.S.? 400 million people or something?
Give or take.
Yeah. With that number of people, Harris and Trump are the best options. Like, come on, there's got to be somebody a little bit more qualified, a little bit smarter than them. 400 million people, and they can't find a better option. Hey, do you remember where you were when Trump got elected?
I actually do not.
No, I was actually traveling. I was in the U.S. at the time. I think I was in North Carolina. I was staying at a brand new hotel that had been built for an airport expansion that hadn't happened yet. So it was in the middle of nowhere. I had to drive 45 minutes to find a restaurant to get something to eat. This is how far out this airport hotel was. But on the way back, I wanted to watch. There was no bar, nothing in the hotel, so I wanted to watch the election results. So now, don't take this wrong, but I'm looking around and I go on Google and there's a little bar tucked out in the middle of nowhere. And I look at it, and apparently it is a gay gentleman's bar. I thought, hey, what the heck? So I go down. I go into this place, and the guy stops me. He says, excuse me, you do realize this is a gay gentleman's bar? And I says, yeah. I says, listen, can I get a drink here? And he says, yes. I says, do you have the election on? And he says, yes. I says, is anybody going to bother me? He looks me up and down and says, nope. I found that kind of offensive.
Well, I think that call was headed in that direction. But nonetheless, you were in North Carolina. I think that's what I learned from that. You were in North Carolina in 2016 when Donald Trump was first elected. Mike, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
Good.
I got a quick, it's a little bit of a story, but it should be a good one for you.
Okay.
On Friday night, the Diwali celebration were going off, fireworks going off, and that's fine. And my neighbor let theirs off, and they were letting them off in the driveway, which is fine. They're legally allowed to. They didn't let them up and sand things, so like there's a risk of them falling down, or they didn't have water by them, so the rest they might not be able to put them out. But I thought, okay, I'll sit in the porch, watch it, make sure at least nothing bad happened. But then they had one of them that was a large bomb-sized one that basically, when it went off, all the cars in the street, the alarms went off. The problem is, when it went off, it tipped sideways. And it had large flares that are about the size of a tennis ball. One flew down the street, and one flew onto my neighbor's hedge. And the third one bounced off the wall and hit the ricocheted and got me between me and my seat. I ended up with second to third degree burns. I phoned the policing. They brought in then they ended up dispatching the fire and the ambulance. Fire and ambulance, perfect service. They were awesome. They're completely awesome. So was Grand River Hospital, the burn unit, and the trauma. They were great. So my rave is for them. They did an excellent job. The only thing is with the police, when I reported it, they said that they wouldn't be sending a policeman to go off to report the incident because there wasn't enough damage really done and that the fireworks at that point had stopped. So I found this kind of odd. Maybe it's a question to bring up with the police during your monthly call with them.
Yeah, you know what, Mike? It's a great point. And the monthly call with police is tomorrow because it's the first Tuesday of the month from 11 until noon. I promise you we will talk about fireworks, but I'll also remind you, even ahead of that it's not a policing issue. It's a bylaw issue, right? It's not a criminal act. If you contravene a bylaw, it's a municipal issue, not a policing criminal issue. However, police did put out an educational video, if you will, last week showing us how not to use fireworks. We'll definitely talk to them about the problems we've had over these last many days when they're with us tomorrow from 11 until noon, our monthly Ask the Chief segment. Quick break, back with more. It's the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Final minutes of the show for another day. Final phone calls from you during this Talkback Hour. Mary is with us. Good afternoon, Mary.
Good afternoon, Mike. I think Andre should be paying you some royalties because he's on there all the time.
He is on here.
Free, whatever you call it.
Free publicity?
But, I love him.
I'm glad you did.
Because he likes wine, and so do I. And I will move on from there quickly, Mike. I feel punch drunk today, and I believe it's all because of the change in the time.
I feel a little bit similar, yes.
Yeah. And anyway, there's a guy in Hamilton or Burlington. He doesn't change the clocks. He leaves them the same. And I'm thinking, yeah, I might do that.
But you're going to be late for everything.
Well, I don't do anything important.
Oh.
Not like you do. So who cares? I might just turn my clocks forward an hour.
Just remember that you didn't change the clocks then, Mary. And when somebody says meet them at a certain time, you make the adjustment accordingly.
Yeah, an appointment. Yes. You are very correct. But honest to Pete, I just putting it down, I feel like I've been drinking beer all night, and I don't even like beer.
Well, that'll teach you a lesson, Mary. You should drink beer. Okay, you have a great day. If not for the regular callers, where would the entertainment on this show be? It sure as hell doesn't come from me. All right, we're going to get you to the 570 News Center for your update at 1. And then, look at that. It's Rob Snow. He's standing by to take more of your calls on Talkback from 1 until 3. So you've got the station in the right place. Don't change it. Colin Robertson, a.k.a. Wobbles, is our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.